From one sports fan to another, hello again. This is episode 12 of 933 Sports. Happy to be here on this Friday. Hope everybody's excited for the weekend. Yeah, just going to jump right into it today. Plan for today, I was going to originally talk Sorsby today. There's really nothing has progressed too heavily with that, so I don't want to dive too much into it yet. I'm going to we'll TBD that for when it's, when more comes out about that. I said last week, I wanted to talk AFC at some point on a day where I didn't have much else I wanted to talk about, so congratulations. Today's going to be all about football and the AFC. Specifically, please listen to episode 10 if you haven't already. That's all NFC stuff. Really good. You can listen to me rant about the Packers. It's awesome. But yeah, before we touch on the AFC stuff, I do have to talk about it as a Bears fan. Caleb Williams is on the cover of Madden this year. The Iceman himself is your Madden 27 cover athlete. The cover looks incredible. It's a recreation of an iconic Air Jordan shot. You got the Chicago skyline. It's kind of like that sunset vibe. He's doing the jump throw. It looks great. And then, of course, the deluxe edition with the Iceman Selly is also fantastic. It looks really good. I do play Madden more than most. I know people are kind of divided on it. I'm buying it this year for sure, getting a physical copy, because that's just something I want to hold on to. If you had told a Bears fan 5 years ago that not only would we have a Bears player on the cover, but it would be the quarterback, I don't think a Bears fan would have believed you. I certainly wouldn't have. So, thank you, Caleb Williams, for saving my life, and Ben Johnson as well while we're at it. So, super, super cool. The trailer's awesome with Vince Vaughn. It's just, as a Bears fan who has been in constant misery for over a decade, finally getting our moment to shine, especially after everything that was last season, and all the stuff to be optimistic about going forward. It's just, enjoy it. It's nice to be relevant, to be a relevant franchise again, and to be talked about, and to get this kind of publicity, and actually be considered as like one of the better franchises in the league. It's really cool. I know people talk about a lot about the Madden curse. It's not as bad of a curse as a lot of people actually think it is. And plus two, it's like, these guys aren't thinking about that. I'm not really worried about that too much. So, yeah. But yeah, that's awesome. We're going to dive into the AFC now and actually get this thing going. I did want to start in the AFC North. Of course, we're still a couple days removed from the Myles Garrett trade. Jared Verse swap spots with him in that division. Yeah, obviously that's kind of the biggest shakeup in that division, is the Browns are worse going into this year. And they were already going to be bad. Their quarterback room's already bad. They don't have a ton of weapons. They got some guys in the trenches, but yeah, you trade the reigning defensive player of the year away, you get worse, especially when the picks that you got in that trade you haven't had a chance to use them yet. And so, like everybody expected, the Browns probably were only going to win like 4 or 5 games. Now they're probably only going to win like 2 or 3. I really do think that matters. I think Myles Garrett has that much of an impact. But yeah, not really. I wanted to start there because not only does Myles Garrett leave the division, but of course Aaron Rodgers is officially back. He's been back. He's coming back for his final season. The Steelers. This division is so weird because you have 3 quarterbacks in this division. That Rodgers is a Hall of Famer. Lamar Jackson already has 2 MVPs, all the QB rushing records he has. He's probably going to be a Hall of Famer like even if he retired tomorrow, just because of the records, he'd probably still be inducted. Maybe not first ballot, but he would be inducted at some point. I do believe that. And then you got Joe Burrow, who, if he can stay healthy, like it kind of has an Andrew Luck feel to it. It's like if he plays enough games at the level he plays at when he's healthy, he could easily be a Hall of Famer. But if he gets hurt too much, retires early because of it or something like that, then he won't be. And so you've got three really, really high-level quarterbacks in that division, but none of these three teams are really seen as Super Bowl contenders. I know a lot of people like the Ravens. I don't as much, because, with the Bengals, it's Burrow, Chase, and T. Higgins are taking up so much of the salary cap. They don't really have a defense because of that. The offensive line's kind of a mess. Outside of their passing attack, there's not much there. And so you're relying on Burrow to stay healthy, and he just doesn't have... He's a great passer, but because he's not as much of a runner, because he's not as much of an improviser like, Allen, Mahomes, some of these guys, it's like it limits what you can do, even offensively. And I think that's going to hurt the Bengals a lot. And then you've got the Ravens. I'm not very high on them because, they parted ways with Harbaugh for a reason, because it just wasn't working. It wasn't just last year, Lamar Jackson missed quite a bit of time. Tyler Huntley was still looking pretty good in those games. Derrick Henry still had great moments. It wasn't working with Harbaugh, and they knew they weren't going to get done. Jesse Minter is in the building now. Declan Doyle's calling plays for Lamar. First-time head coach, first-time play caller. It's just very raw, and, they lost Isaiah Likely. He followed Harbaugh to New York. I think their problems are much deeper than people realize. It's not like it's different from the first-time head coach and elite quarterback situation with the Bills. The Bills are a different situation. People are thinking the Ravens and the Bills are basically in the same spot. They're not. They are not. Because at least with the Bills, there's consistency in the play caller. Joe Brady was the play caller for Josh Allen last year. He's going to be again this year. And that consistency matters. And that familiarity matters. And I think that's something that the Ravens are going to struggle with. It's going to take them a solid month or two to really figure out what they want this thing to look like. And at that point, they could still make the playoffs, but you run into even, Buffalo. You run into a defense like Denver or Houston. At that point is kind of my thought. So I'm not saying they're going to miss the playoffs. I expect them to make the playoffs, and they could even potentially win that division. But I don't think they're a Super Bowl contender, because Lamar, has taken a couple hits now. He's not as mobile. He's not as dynamic. He's still good, but the question is are his most athletic, most versatile years behind him? And I think the answer might be yes. So we'll see on them. And then, of course, you got the Steelers with Rodgers. They got pieces, and, it'll be fun to run it back with McCarthy. It's still the Steelers. I think it's still, 9-8 Super Bowl. You're just going to make the playoffs as a wild card, maybe the 7 seed, get blown out by a real contender. I really don't think this is any different. I don't think it's any different. You fire Mike Tomlin just to hire the offensive version of Mike Tomlin, and it's not going to make a bit of difference. I really don't think it matters all that much what they're doing. They've had, outside of bringing Rodgers back and hiring Tomlin, or not hiring Tomlin, hiring McCarthy, they've had a pretty quiet offseason, all things considered. The most noise they've really made was drafting Drew Aller, which, okay, sure. And that was like a third round. It's not like they were spending high capital on him. So yeah, it'll be, Steelers are just kind of stuck in neutral, which, what's new there? If I had to I think the Ravens will win the division. Like I said, I don't think they're a Super Bowl contender, but I think they will win this division. I said this on my last episode, and you really start to run through it now. It's, the NFC is way deeper than the AFC, because you start running down the list of who do you think who's an actual Super Bowl contender out of the AFC, and there's really, you start running thin on teams because obviously, we expect the Bills to be around again with Josh Allen. We expect the Chiefs and the Ravens to be around because of their quarterbacks, but those teams are obviously worse than they were like 2 or 3 years ago. And, you got up-and-coming teams. You've got the Broncos. You've got even somewhat the Texans and the Jags, but all these teams have very real questions in very key spots. And so you start to get concerned when it comes to, where do we go from here? What happens next? And so it's why the Patriots made the Super Bowl out of the AFC. That's why, is because there's a lot of teams in the AFC that just don't have it all together. And you're kind of able to sneak somebody in there. So it's wide open. I would say it's more open than the NFC as a result as well. I mean, obviously the NFC, it's like, is anybody but the Rams going to have a shot? But with the AFC, it feels the most open it's been in a very long time. A very long time. Because you kind of had the Patriots dynasty, and then you moved right into the Chiefs dynasty, and it was just basically Brady and Mahomes trading Super Bowl appearances, and, Joe Burrow snuck one in there. Peyton Manning snuck 2 in there during the Brady years, but it's like, yeah, this conference is way more open than it has been for a very long time, and so you have a lot of guys jockeying for position there. So I think it's the more interesting conference to watch this year just because of that. There's way more there's a wider degree of variance in terms of what could happen. So moving on, we'll go to the AFC East now. Out east, you've got, it's pretty obvious that the Bills and the Patriots are the two teams to watch. They were last year. They will be again this year. The Dolphins and the Jets. The Dolphins have fully committed to the rebuild. The Jets are still very much rebuilding. The Jets will be better, I would think, but they'll still finish below 500. They still will miss the playoffs. I don't think anybody's expecting them to all of a sudden be like even a 9 or 10 win team. I could see them winning like 7 games. 7 and 10 is very possible. I think they're going to be better than they have been because I do think some of the draft picks, Geno's a quarterback upgrade. There's just a lot of moves they made in the margins to improve their win total, but they're still very much, hey, we're still not even close, and I think everybody knows that. And then the Dolphins, obviously, all the dead cap. I mean, they're just throwing this year away because they're more than half their salary cap is paying guys who aren't even on the team anymore. And so I think they're tanking for a quarterback. I really do. I think, Malik Willis, they brought him in as a bridge, but it's the same thing as the Jets bringing in like Justin Fields or something like that. It's like, it's just because you need to have somebody passable as your starter. Like, it's not because, they expect, this guy can make sure we win a couple more games than we were originally predicted. No, they clearly want to tank, and they want to get one of the highly touted QB prospects next year. So that leaves the Patriots and the Bills. Obviously, the Patriots just got A.J. Brown the other day. I talked about that, so I won't really dwell on the Patriots too much. I mean, it's obviously going to be the Patriots and the Bills winning that division. Both teams are going to make the playoffs. I think that's pretty obvious. I think both teams are going to, is this the year Josh Allen makes the Super Bowl? We're asking that for the 5th year in a row now. And then the Patriots, obviously, the only way they can improve upon last year is really just winning the Super Bowl. And so, with those two teams, yeah, it's Super Bowl or bust for them. So, That'll be fun. The East is pretty cut and dry. I mean, there's two teams. They're both going to make the playoffs. It's kind of a heads or tails coin flip of who's going to win the division, but both are going to make a ton of noise. So we'll see what happens there. The South, kind of same thing. Titans. The South actually is going to be. The South's more like the North than it is the East, because in the AFC South, you've got Texans, Jags, Titans, and Colts. And the Texans have a great defense, serious quarterback questions. And part of that is because they have offensive line questions. The Jags, they have pieces, but they're outside of like T-Law, and even then they're not great in any specific spot. And then the Titans, their new coaching staff, they've added some weapons here and there for Cam Ward. I still don't like a lot of their draft, but whatever. And then you've got the Colts. They got Daniel Jones coming back, and he did look very good before he got hurt last year, and they've got some pieces in place. It's interesting. I think the South is the most open division in the AFC. The most open division in the most open conference. It is... I could honestly see all four of those teams winning the division. I really could. The one I think that would be least likely to win it, if I had to give percentages, my fourth choice would be Indianapolis. But all four of those teams have a lot of talent in a lot of places, and they also have major question marks in major places. So it's really just who pulls themselves up by their bootstraps and rises to the top. If you had to ask me right now who wins the division, I would probably say Houston, just because I do think Stroud's going to be better than he has been the past 2 years. I'm not saying he's going to be great, but I think he's going to be better. And I think their defense is still going to be very dominant. And so I think if that happens, they will win that division. But, I think there will once again be multiple playoff teams from that division. But even then I say that, and it's like, you start running through the list of other teams that are playoff contenders, it's like, well, you're running out of room fast. So, but yeah, I'd say the Texans win that division. Then heading out west, you got the Chiefs, Chargers, Broncos, and Raiders. The Raiders, I've talked about them plenty when they took Mendoza. I think everybody kind of knows where we stand on the Raiders. It kind of is Cousins or Mendoza going to start. I already talked about that. They're just trying to win 6 games, 7 games. Just try and improve their win total from last year. And just, is Clint Kubiak our coach, and is Fernando Mendoza our quarterback? If they have those questions answered by the end of the season, years of success. The other 3 teams are obviously gunning for the playoffs. Herbert's trying to win his first playoff game. He's going to have his offensive line back healthy. I would be optimistic about that. Mahomes looks ready to go week 1, coming off his injuries last year, so that's good for the Chiefs. And the Broncos, obviously, just hoping Bo Nix stays healthy just after, him missing the AFC Championship game. So all 3 of those teams obviously are gunning for big time. And it'll just be fun to see where that ends up. So I know this is kind of me just spitballing, running through the teams. But yeah, there's really not much to talk about. There hasn't been anything major that's happened really since the draft of the AFC that's worth noting, outside of, Myles Garrett's no longer on the Browns. That's about it. A.J. Brown on the Patriots. I talked about those trades on the last episode, so watch that if you haven't already. Outside of that, just shorter episode today. Wanted to get something out. And yeah, we're just kind of biding our time. Next episode, I'll probably do follow up on baseball. We got the U.S. Open in 2 weeks, so that'll be nice to talk some more golf, get back to that. And, I might go down to just 1 episode a week throughout July, just because if I don't have anything to talk about, then I'm not going to keep uploading just for the sake of uploading. I do want quality, so. But like I've said before, if there's something you want to see, something you want me to talk about, I'm more than happy to. Just DM me, text me if you know me personally. And yeah, I hope we'll address it. So I hope everybody has a great rest of their day. Signing off for now. Adios.